Well, how are you everyone? It's so nice to see you again. Now we're going to talk about expressing advice with conditional sentence type 0. I'm sure that we have discussed conditional sentence in type 1, type 2, and type 3. Now we will focus on conditional sentence type 0 only in order to express an advice or suggestion, right? The function of this conditional sentence is to give an advice with a very polite way. So the use of conditional sentence is helpful to beautify the advice, right? In terms of asking people to do something using a direct instruction, for example, it is a lot more likely to be polite if you use conditional sentence. So how to use this conditional sentence and what is the politeness level of this conditional sentence type 0, that's what we're going to discuss, right? So, well, take a look at the objective, right? At the end of this class, the students are expected to understand the language features of expressions, especially in conditional with advice, right? Number two, the student are expected to use or to be able to use the expression of conditional with advice in various contexts. And last one, the student are expected to be able to construct either oral or written expression of conditional with various contexts. So at the end of this class, the highest level that you guys really need to master is being able to construct your own word, either in oral or in written expressions. Let's have a slight review because I'm pretty sure that we have discussed this conditional sentence before, and I want you to recall their memory. So what is conditional sentence, right? A conditional sentence is basically a sentence that contains with a conditional clause and a main clause. So it is constructed from two different elements. Number one is conditional clause. Number two, it's main clause. So where is conditional clause and where is main clause? Take a look at the sentence below. If you know her well, she will be your friend. Right. There is a condition and there is a main clause. If you know her well is a conditional clause, she will be your friend is main clause, which means that she will be your friend under a condition. What is that condition? If you know her well. If you don't know her well, then she will not be your friend, for example. So this is actually the type of conditional. There are a lot of type of conditional, right? As we know it, like uh, type 1, like this sentence, and also type 2, type 3, and last one is 0 type that we are going to discuss today. So conditional sentence is advice or instruction. Conditional sentence in 0 type can be functioning as two function. Number one is can be an advice or it can be an instruction. What makes them different is only about how people understand it, right? For example, in both sides, I have provided the example and formula of both advice and instruction. Okay, take a look at the advice first. This advice: if plus condition plus you have to plus verb 1. The condition, what I mean, is the conditional clause, right? Verb 1. If condition plus you have to plus verb 1, right? You have to is not an absolute word. You can change. You can use some variation in expressing this praise. For example, you can say if condition you have to, or if condition you need to. For example, there are a lot of variation, and I will provide that um, optional variation at the end. If you log into the online class late, you need to ask for the teacher permission, right? This is an advice from someone who want to emphasize that you really need a teacher permissions in order to log into their online classes if you are late. So the advice is need a permission. The advice is please ask the permissions because you need to, for example, right? Because you come late. So the condition is when you need to ask the teacher permission is whenever you log into the online class late. If you're not late, then you don't need to ask for the teacher permission, right? Right. What it make different to the instruction? Right. In the instructions, when you can see in my left side, if condition imperative. What is imperative? What I mean by imperative is a word of order, asking people to do something, right? There is no subject, it goes directly to the verb. For example, if you eat cracker, if you eat crackers in my room, clean it before leaving. So this is more likely to be an instructions rather than advice because there is no any praise that tell you it is better to do cleaning before leaving. So you don't have an option. You don't have an option whether you can clean before leaving or you cannot clean it before leaving if you don't want to, for example, right? So take a look at the my left side. At my left side, advice tell you to ask for the teacher permission. If you don't want to ask for the teacher permission, it's totally fine because it is an advice, right? It is better for you to do the advice. But if you don't want to do the advice, still fine, but probably you will have the consequences by your own, right? And how about the instruction? In these instructions, the speaker leave you no choice. The condition if you eat cracker in my room, then you have to clean it, right? If you if you eat cracker in my room, clean it before leaving. So clean it before leaving is an order, right? So the speaker order you to clean before leaving if you eat cracker. So that is basically about how you interpret both advice and instruction. Advice more likely to have this type of expression: you need to ask, you have to, it's better for you, for example. This phrase indicate an advice, but take a look at the instruction. There is no any such a phrase, right? If you eat cracker in my room, directly go to imperative, clean it before leaving, right? So that is the difference between advice and instructions. Okay, sir, which one that we're going to learn now? Advice or instruction? We're going to learn both because it can goes directly at the same time. It has nothing to worry about understanding it, uh, be, uh, about understanding it because it is not complex. It's very easy. All right. See, This is a politeness issue. Sometimes when you when you give an order or when you give an advice, people will interpret whether you are polite enough to give an advice, whether you are polite enough to give an instruction, right? So the more polite, the better it is. But for an informal setting, so casual is also fine. For example, if you have a good friend or a close friend or best friend, then whenever you use an informal, it's still accepted, right? Okay. The praise in advice, for example, if you use, if you want to, you should, ought to, would better, and might, it is a formal or polite context. For example, for example, if you are hungry, you should eat on time. Or if you are hungry, you would better to eat on time, right? Or if you are hungry, for example, you might need to eat on time, right? This is a formal polite expression. Whenever you use such expression or this such praise, so it will indicate a formal setting or a polite setting. You can say it to your elder, you can say it to the people in a formal discussions or a formal meeting, for example. But if you use you need to and you have to, it is a bit not neutral. Some people concerned that this is polite, some people concerned that this is not polite, uh, or I can say that yes, it's a bit polite, but sometimes it's also a bit casual. So nothing to worry about how to interpret both. You can use in both sides, right? You can use in a polite setting, or you can use in casual setting as well. But how about this two expression? If you want to, why don't you? The word of why don't you indicate an informal or casual setting. And last one, the word of imperative is mostly informal. There is no formal word for or formal form for an instruction. Using imperative is an instruction, right? For example, if you want to go home, why don't you go with me? Okay. If you want to go home, drive by yourself, for example. So the word of drive by yourself is imperative, and this is informal or casual. Do not use this both expression to your elder because this is not polite, right? As a person who want to be respected, you need to address the polite expression to the people who that you need to respect from the very beginning. That is why you need to learn the politeness, right? So there are three categories: formal, neutral, and informal. So you need to identify both, or three of them actually. You need to identify three of them and then use them in a sentence letter, right? Okay. To the um, to the example of advice and instruction. If clause or zero condition plus advice is an optional. If you use an advice, it is an optional, as I told you before. For example, take a look at this example. If you want to be relaxed, you'd better grow rose. If you want to be relaxed, you better grow rose. If you want to follow my advice, then grow rose. If you don't want to follow my advice, then find another advice. It means it's optional, right? You can do it, but if you don't want to, you can leave it. And another example, if you need to be relaxed, you'd better go on vacation. This is my advice for you. For example, if you need to be relaxed, you'd better go on vacation. But if you don't want to go on vacation, it's totally fine because it's only me advising you. If you don't want to follow my advice, that's totally fine. But if you want to follow my advice, it will help probably, right? If it will help you to be relaxed probably, right? Okay, but how about instruction? Instruction is not an optional, right? So the speaker give you uh, an emphasis of these instructions that you need to do this. You must do this if you this. That is actually the concept. For example, if you go to the laundry, take please take this with you. It means it is an instruction. The speaker instruct you to take this with you if you go to the laundry. Or second example, if you are happy and you know it, clap your hand, for example. So there is no any sense of advice in the sentence. It's like it's not only asking you to do uh, to clap your hand, for example, but it is a must for you to clap your hand, right? It is not an advice. If you don't follow it, probably that I'm not going to be happy because that's my advice. That's my instruction, and you are not following my instruction, which means that you are not listening to me, for example. But advice is not that way. Advice, it's about an action of helping people, for example, of helping another individual to solve their problem, for example. So that is what make different from advice and instruction, as I have told you before, right? This is the example of all of advice and instruction. So if you understand and you know it, clap your hand. This is a form of instruction. How if I change, for example, if you understand and you know it, how about clap your hand, for example? The word of how about will turn the instruction into an advice. So what make both different, what make both instruction and uh, advice different is only the phrase that stated whether you have an option or not an option, right? Okay, I think that is all, guys, for today's lesson. I hope you guys understand. If you don't understand, then leave a comment below, or you can contact me in my personal uh, WhatsApp account, right? And also you can leave a comment in the designated Google Classroom. Thank you. Don't forget, we have an exercise after this, right? You have an exercise and you can access the exercise to the link that I have sent you. Thank you and have a good day. God bless you.